Joining me now is someone who advised President Trump, former national security advisor in the first term, John Bolton. He says the president's message to Norway's prime minister makes clear that Trump has a psychological need to own Greenland. Can you explain, John Bolton, what is driving this for President Trump? Is it a real estate acquisition in his view?
Well, I think you need a shrink to give you the right explanation, but Trump has dialed himself up on this issue for his own reasons. He said publicly, we need to own Greenland for psychological reasons. Now, I don't think there's anybody else that I'm aware of in America that psychologically needs to own Greenland. I think this is about Trump. There's a legitimate U.S. national security interest here, as there is a Danish security interest, as there is a Canadian security interest, as there is for all of NATO, because of Russian and Chinese activity in the Arctic regions as the polar ice cap melts. And there are ways to address those that don't have anything to do with what Donald Trump is talking about.
You, of course, during the first term, advised him, and you were at a lot of meetings where national security threats were discussed. You read a lot of reports and assessments. Did anyone ever say Greenland is under immediate threat from Russia and or China, and the U.S. needs to respond immediately, surging forces there to defend Greenland?
No, and the reality is that NATO as a whole has not paid adequate attention to the Arctic. That is a fact, and that includes the United States. I really think the Arctic is the new soft underbelly of the NATO alliance. But the threat is not, as President Trump has said, that there are Russian and Chinese ships all over Greenland. This is a threat down the road, and what we need in Greenland are not tens of thousands of troops stationed along the coast staring out into snowstorms looking for a Chinese invasion fleet. We need to set up surveillance capabilities, monitoring capabilities for naval assets in that region, and not just around Greenland. Let's start with Alaska. We need more up there too. We don't have enough American icebreakers, just for starters. So there's a lot of work to do, but it's not because of a Russian threat in the next 90 days, that's for sure.
European partners are talking now publicly. They were doing this privately for some time to me, but now they're talking publicly about the threat to the alliance itself. You told me in my most recent book, and I'm quoting you, but this is a couple years ago, that NATO will be in real jeopardy. I think Trump, will try to get out in a second term. Is Trump possibly attempting to make that a reality now? That is, does he want to break the alliance?
Look, on a good day, Trump is indifferent to NATO. He said, again, publicly within the past couple of weeks, this may be a choice between between Greenland and NATO. I think for some of his advisors, it'd be a twofer. Take Greenland and lose NATO. I don't think Americans fully understand how much damage this Trump rhetoric is doing in our most important alliance. He is actually, in my view, harming American national security, not enhancing it by the way he's approached the Greenland issue.
Europe appears to be digging in. They appear to be sincere in their conviction that this is a red line, giving up sovereign territory to the U.S. under pressure, both economic, potentially military. Trump, of course, has other leverage, up to and including ending all U.S. support for Ukraine, but also removing troops from Europe. And these are both things that he has threatened before. Does he have more leverage against Europe?
Well, I think if Europe approaches it in that kind of fashion, they'll be making a big mistake. The Soviet Union wanted to split NATO during the Cold War. Yeah. And one reason they lost the Cold War was that they failed. So this will be unpalatable for Europeans to hear. But Donald Trump's only going to be president for 3 more years. They should not be complicit in his actions and end up doing what the Kremlin wanted for so many decades and splitting NATO.
But if Trump insists, I mean, you have a rock and a hard place, or a game of chicken here, right? They've set they don't want to break NATO, Europe, but they've also set as a red line giving up sovereign territory under duress, which is exactly what Trump is threatening here. how do they avoid breaking the alliance while holding to that red line?
Well, what it looks like they're doing is getting ready for a trade war, and people are understandably worried about that. The Supreme Court may save us from ourselves in the next few days if their tariff decision comes down. But honestly, a trade war puts us right back where we were in April of last year when Trump announced the Liberation Day tariff program. I thought it was a mistake then. They eventually made a deal with Europe, but part of what Trump is doing here is saying not just to Europe, but to the whole world, you can make a deal with me, and 6, 8, 10 months later, I'm off again. I don't care about the deal. So there's an economic as well as a politico-military downside here. This is all negative for the United States. Trump doesn't seem to realize it, and perhaps his supporters don't either.